black CEO denied a room in her own hotel. She makes them regret it instantly. The sleek black car pulled up to the grand entrance of a luxurious high-rise hotel. The neon lights reflected off the tinted windows, and as the driver stepped out, he rushed to open the door. A woman in a tailored navy blue suit, her heels clicking against the pavement, stepped onto the curb. Her presence commanded attention, but no one knew who she was. Not yet. She adjusted the diamond-studded watch on her wrist, smoothed the invisible wrinkles on her blazer, and walked into the hotel lobby. The crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the marble floors, and the faint hum of conversation buzzed in the background. She approached the front desk, standing tall with a confident smile. The receptionist, a young man with neatly styled hair, glanced up and gave her a once-over. His expression shifted subtly, but she noticed the change in his demeanor, the hesitation in his voice. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" he asked, his smile polite but distant. "Yes, I do. Under the name Ava Sinclair." She watched him type on the keyboard, his eyes scanning the screen. Then the polite smile faltered, replaced with something less warm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't see a reservation under that name." Ava's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's odd. I booked the presidential suite personally. Double check, please." He exhaled, nodding. But when he glanced at her again, there was something in his gaze that made her fingers curl into her palm. A flicker of doubt. A silent question. "Ma'am, are you sure you have the right hotel? This is the Sinclair Grand." Ava inhaled slowly. "I am very aware of what hotel this is." "Check again." A woman in a sleek black dress and a pearl necklace approached the desk. The hotel manager. Her name tag read Victoria. She had that air of someone used to power, but not the kind earned through hard work. The kind given to her, inherited. She glanced at Ava, then at the receptionist. "Is there a problem?" Victoria's voice was smooth, rehearsed. "Ms. Sinclair claims she has a reservation for the presidential suite, but I don't see it in the system," the receptionist explained. Victoria's eyes ran over Ava, from her neatly styled hair to the designer handbag resting on the counter. There was a pause before she turned back to the receptionist. "That suite is booked for an exclusive guest. I'm sure there was a misunderstanding." Ava let the silence stretch. The weight of it thickened, pressing down on the space between them. "A misunderstanding? That's interesting. Because I happen to own this hotel." The words were delivered with surgical precision, a blade slicing through the false politeness. The receptionist paled. Victoria blinked once, twice, before letting out a laugh, the kind that wasn't meant to be taken seriously. "Oh, I see. That's very amusing, Ms. Sinclair." As in Ava Sinclair. As in the Sinclair Grand. The very name etched on this building. She tilted her head. "Would you like me to pull up the ownership records?" "I have them readily available." The shift was immediate. The receptionist's throat bobbed as he swallowed, and Victoria's expression hardened. "I apologize for any confusion, but we can't just give a room based on a claim." "A claim?" Ava cut her off. "You assumed I didn't belong here the moment I walked in. You didn't ask for an ID, a confirmation number, nothing. You just dismissed me." Her voice didn't rise, but the weight of her words carried through the lobby. Victoria folded her arms. "That's a strong accusation. We follow strict policies here. If your name isn't in the system, then the system has been tampered with." Ava pulled out her phone, tapped the screen a few times, and held it up. "I have access to the full database. Let's see who removed my name." The receptionist's fingers twitched. Victoria's lips parted, then pressed into a thin line. "No need for that," Victoria said smoothly. "There must have been an error." Ava smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, a very convenient error." She turned the phone toward them. "And there it is. My reservation was deleted from the system an hour ago. I wonder who had access." Victoria's posture stiffened. "I assure you." "Save it." Ava pocketed her phone. "Let's cut to the part where you regret this instantly." A tense silence hung in the air before Ava turned, her heels clicking against the floor as she strode toward the main lobby. A few guests watched the unfolding drama with interest. Everyone. Her voice carried, sharp and clear. Heads turned. Conversations paused. I am Ava Sinclair, the owner of this establishment, and I have just been denied a room in my own hotel. She let that sink in, watching as people exchanged murmurs, eyes widening. Victoria's face drained of color. Ms. Sinclair, please. Ava raised a hand, silencing her. Effective immediately, I am placing new policies in place. First, I will personally review the employment status of every single staff member involved in this incident. The receptionist's eyes darted to Victoria, who clenched her fists at her sides. Second, Ava continued, there will be extensive training on recognizing bias, professionalism, and customer service, starting with those who failed spectacularly tonight. Ms. Sinclair, this isn't necessary. And third, Ava turned fully toward Victoria. Her voice calm but firm. You are relieved of your duties as manager. Security will escort you off the premises. Gasps rippled through the room. Victoria's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face before rage took over. You can't do this. Oh, I assure you I can. And I just did. Pack your things. The guards near the entrance hesitated before stepping forward. Victoria's breath hitched as she realized this wasn't a bluff. You're making a mistake, she hissed. I've been running this place for years. And that's the problem, Ava replied. You've been running it into the ground with your prejudice. You saw a black woman at your front desk and assumed she didn't belong. But I do. More than you ever did. Security flanked Victoria, gesturing for her to move. With one last glare, she turned on her heel and stormed toward the exit, her heels clacking furiously against the marble floor. The doors shut behind her, and just like that, the air felt lighter. Ava turned to the receptionist, who looked like he wanted to shrink into the floor. You have one chance to prove you belong in this hotel's future. Do better. He nodded rapidly, unable to form words. Ava inhaled, exhaled, then smiled slightly. Now, someone get me the keys to my suite. The front desk clerk's smirk faltered as the woman pulled out her phone and made a call. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply said, "It's me. I need you here. Now." Then she slipped the phone back into her designer bag and looked at the clerk with a calm, unreadable expression. The clerk hesitated. Look, ma'am, I don't know who you think you are, but this hotel has a strict policy. You can't just walk in and... A deep voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here? Heads turned as a sharply dressed man in a navy blue suit walked in, his polished shoes tapping against the marble floor. His expression was neutral, but his presence commanded attention. He wasn't just anyone. He was the hotel's regional manager. The front desk clerk straightened, suddenly looking less sure of himself. Oh, Mr. Hastings. I was just explaining to this woman that we don't have any available rooms tonight. The woman's gaze didn't waver. She stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. He didn't just refuse to give me a room. He refused to believe I even belonged here. Hastings' brow furrowed. Excuse me. The woman tilted her head slightly. Perhaps you should check your system. My name is Monique Carter. The moment she said it, the color drained from the clerk's face. Hastings' expression changed too. There was a flicker of recognition, then realization. Monique Carter. The Monique Carter. The woman who had taken a failing hotel chain and turned it into a multi-million-dollar empire. The woman who had bought this very hotel just months ago. The woman whose face had been on the cover of Forbes last year under the headline. The CEO who redefined luxury hospitality. Silence stretched for a moment. The lobby seemed to shrink, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on everyone within earshot. The clerk's voice wavered. Why you're... Monique's gaze was steady. Yes, I am. Hastings was quick to recover. He turned sharply to the clerk. What exactly happened here? The clerk swallowed. I didn't know. That's obvious. Monique cut in smoothly. Because if you did, you wouldn't have spoken to me the way you did. But let's be clear about something. Your job isn't to judge who belongs in this hotel. Your job is to provide exceptional service to every guest. Hastings turned to the clerk, his jaw tightening. Go to my office. Now. The clerk opened his mouth, then shut it. Without another word, he turned and disappeared down the hallway. Hastings turned back to Monique, his voice measured. "Ms. Carter, I deeply apologize for this unacceptable treatment. Please allow me to personally escort you to our finest suite." Monique studied him for a long moment. Then finally she nodded. They walked together through the lavish hallways, the air thick with tension. Monique didn't speak, and Hastings didn't dare to break the silence. When they reached the suite, Hastings unlocked the door and stepped aside. "The presidential suite," he said quietly. "On the house." Monique didn't respond. She stepped inside, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the plush furniture, the grand chandelier casting a golden glow over the room. Then she turned back to Hastings. "Fire him." Hastings hesitated. "Ms. Carter, if I may." "I built this company on values," Monique said. "On respect. On service. He doesn't belong here." Hastings exhaled, then nodded. "Consider it done." Monique held his gaze for a moment longer, then closed the door. But she wasn't done. She walked to the desk, pulled out her laptop, and sent a company-wide email. Not just to this hotel, but to every property under her brand. A message that made one thing clear: discrimination had no place in her business. And she would make sure no one ever forgot it. Monique leaned back in the plush leather chair, her fingers poised over the keyboard. Her email was direct, uncompromising, and crystal clear. Effective immediately, all employees at Carter Luxury Hotels will undergo mandatory inclusivity and service training. We are not just in the business of hospitality. We are in the business of respect. There will be zero tolerance for discrimination of any kind. This is not a request. This is a requirement. She pressed send, her email shooting across the network to every hotel, every manager, every employee. The moment it left her inbox, she exhaled slowly. She wasn't just going to punish one bad employee. She was going to make sure this never happened again. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up and saw a name flash across the screen: Marcus Langston, her COO. She answered on the first ring. "Monique, I just saw your email. What happened?" His voice was sharp, concerned. She kept her tone even. "I walked into my own hotel tonight, and a front desk clerk refused to give me a room. Not because we were full, because he didn't think I belonged." Silence. Then, Marcus let out a slow breath. "Unbelievable." "No," Monique corrected. "All too believable." Marcus didn't argue. They had talked about this before: the subtle dismissals, the judgmental glances, the moments that reminded her that no matter how much success she achieved, some people would always see her as an outsider. "Did you fire him?" Marcus asked. "He's gone," Monique said. "But this is bigger than him. I'm implementing mandatory training across all our hotels." Marcus hummed in agreement. "Good. We need to set the tone from the top. We also need to do a deep dive into hiring and promotion practices. If a front desk clerk thinks it's okay to treat guests like this, I want to know how he got here in the first place." "I'll start looking into it first thing tomorrow," Marcus promised. And Monique, "Yeah. Don't let this steal your peace. You built this. No one can take that from you." She closed her eyes for a brief moment. "I know." After they hung up, Monique stood and walked to the window. The city sparkled beneath her, a skyline of opportunity and challenge. She wasn't done yet. The next morning, Hastings himself knocked on her suite door. When she opened it, he stood there, looking nervous. "Ms. Carter, I wanted to personally apologize again. What happened last night was unacceptable." Monique nodded, but said nothing. She wanted to see where he was going with this. "I've already spoken to the entire staff," Hastings continued. "We had an emergency meeting this morning. I let them know that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated in our hotel or in this company." "Good," Monique said simply. Hastings shifted uncomfortably. He hesitated, then sighed. "I should have done better. The moment I recognized who you were, my response changed. But the truth is, that shouldn't have mattered. Whether you were the CEO or just a guest off the street, you should have been treated with respect." Monique studied him. He looked sincere, regretful. "Do you know why I started Carter Luxury Hotels?" she asked. Hastings shook his head. Because when I was a kid, my parents saved up for years to take us on one family vacation. We went to this fancy resort, and the moment we walked in, we felt like we didn't belong. The staff barely looked at us. The service was cold. We felt invisible. Hastings swallowed. So when I got older, Monique continued, I decided I would build hotels where everyone felt like they belonged. Not just the wealthy. Not just the ones who looked a certain way. Everyone. Hastings nodded slowly. And that's why we're the best. Monique gave him a small smile. That's why we will be the best. But only if every employee, at every level, understand that. I do now, Hastings said firmly. Monique nodded. Then let's get to work. She spent the next 2 days at the hotel, meeting with staff, listening to their concerns, and setting new expectations. She walked the floors, spoke to housekeepers, checked in on the kitchen. She made it clear this wasn't just a business. This was her legacy, and she would protect it at all costs. A week later, Monique was back at headquarters when she received an email from Hastings. Subject, you need to see this. She opened it and found a forwarded message. It was from a guest who had recently stayed at the hotel. Dear Carter Luxury Hotels, I wanted to share my experience at your downtown location. I travel often for work, and as a black woman, I've had my fair share of uncomfortable moments in high-end hotels. But this time was different. From the moment I checked in, I was treated with kindness and respect. The staff was warm, welcoming. I don't know what changed recently, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Because, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I truly belonged. Monique stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across her face. She had made them regret underestimating her. But more importantly, she had made a change. And she was just getting started. The end.